Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Min and I'm your co-host today from NDIS Property Australia, here with Debbie Kindness, who is now finally back from India. Debbie, welcome back.
Thank you, Min.
And we're here at the Adapt office for part 2 of our interview podcast with David Whitelaw. David, hello.
Hey Min, hey Debbie, welcome back to the country.
Thank you very much, great to be back.
So Debbie, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk with David about, I guess, some initiatives they've been working on lately, some of their current projects they've got going.
Yeah, look, some exciting stuff, in particular in northern New South Wales, and I've certainly got a very keen interest as I live in northern New South Wales and work out of our Brisbane office. But over the last 30 years in working in the disability sector, we've made many friends and worked with lots of different organisations throughout northern New South Wales and the northern tablelands, and now we've struck up some great relationships with builders and developers, and we've spent the last 6 to 12 months training them, educating them, showing them what great SDA sites and product look like, and hopefully we'll have some builds coming out of the ground shortly.
Great. Well, we'll go into that in more detail in a moment. Firstly, should we talk about some of the initiatives you've got going with builders?
Yep. We've got some really innovative product at the moment. Our core focus is villa developments and small apartment complexes, and we've got some builders and investors in this space that are really thinking outside the box. I mean, location, I've mentioned this before, is really important, but we've got some interesting design concepts and building materials, in particular to support robust, and we're going to be launching our first special robust duplexes in the Toowoomba region in the next few months. They haven't started construction, but they'll be starting construction very, very soon. Excited that we're actually working with some builders who have built a lot of SDA before in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, and we've just struck up a great relationship with these guys, and they're exploring some new building materials to support participants with robust in their plan.
Oh, tell us a bit more about that.
It's I've got to keep it a little bit of a secret, but we'll be launching shortly. But some of the stuff will be built in a factory and will be delivered on site. So getting that product out quickly to support participants who are in a bit of turmoil at the moment, who are looking for robust builds in regional locations. However, our first one has started, and we hope to have some pictures and some walkthroughs and some marketing material to show the world that we understand robust, we understand the complexities of participants' needs, and what's required to make a really good robust.
So David, our experience going across Australia has been, and you'll probably agree to this, and that is many of the robust participants cannot share with many or any others. So I think the statistic was given to me by someone else was 80% of participants in robust cannot share with anyone else. 20% should be able to. So there's an 80-20 mix there. Do you agree with that kind of breakdown number there?
Yeah, absolutely. I've as a teacher and worked in what we call tutorial centres, special schools with a focus on behaviour support. I understand, the participants' needs, and even participants who have shared funding, the feedback from their support team is to say that they can't share, whether it be noise, whether it be behaviour, just proximity to different locations that causes the issue. Even participants, as I said, who have shared funding, the feedback is that they do need their own space. We also tried to design some builds, some robust houses that had separation between both bedrooms, and we've got a couple under construction at the moment that I think will be really positive. But at the moment, our focus is supporting participants who want to live and need to live independently to cater for those specific behavioural needs.
So your discussions with all the larger organisations around Australia, in Victoria and New South Wales, are they coming to you asking for more support towards the robust category?
Yep. You can't underestimate what location does, though, for a robust participant. We can come up with a little villa development, whether it be a duplex or whether it be a triplex or a small a couple of villas in a larger villa development, but location is so important. It does need to be a little bit isolated, but still needs to be in good locations. And it's hard for me to say, but residential fatigue is a real thing, and it's not just about the neighbours, but it's supporting the participant. We don't want participants to be inundated with additional road noise or neighbourhood noise or anything like that.
Great, David. What about moving on, initiatives that you've got going with providers you're working with?
Yeah, our system very much supports all support providers. We're not attached to just one, and so when we've identified a location, we've got probably collaboration agreements with maybe 50 plus support providers, and we value the larger organisations with a national presence, but we also value the startup guys who are trying to get into this space and to look for the environment that supports participants that they've been supporting for quite a while. So we tend to work with all organisations, and if they come to us and said that they have a need for somewhere, we'll try and put the bill together. However, what we tend to do is to show everyone where a build is, and we start looking at organisations that are delivering supports in that area that do need some SDA product.
And are you finding that these providers are starting to understand specialist disability accommodation more these days?
Absolutely, and as I said, we do a lot of training and we do some information sessions. What's been difficult, though, in the past is the change in SIL, the introduction of ILO or core supports or MTA, and it's been interesting how providers have had to be flexible in this space. As I said, I think some of the information that I've seen is that SIL providers, have gone from a 35% profit margin down to a 2% profit margin. And they've had to come up with innovative ways of delivering supports, whether it be a concierge model that's sort of slowly disappearing, or whether it be just a single house or a duplex or a villa development. Support providers had to be flexible to really, come up with a roster of care that, one, provides support for participants, and two, that they're not losing a substantial amount of money when they're delivering those supports.
Sure. Where else can you see new initiatives coming out?
For us, it's about providing SDA in regional locations. We see that metropolitan areas, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and surrounding areas of Brisbane are really forging ahead, and they've got good knowledge about SDA. But places like, I'm going to go Tamworth and Armidale, Coffs Harbour, Taree, Port Macquarie in New South Wales. And then there's some really wonderful initiatives and SDA product coming out of, Rockhampton, Yeppoon, Mackay. Those regional locations are screaming out for really good product in great locations. But it's also it's about engaging the independent support coordinators who are currently working with participants that haven't got SDA in their plans at the moment because the product didn't exist. And a lot of national data that comes out, we see that there's not a high demand in those regional locations from the data that we've got. However, it's because the product doesn't exist. And now, once we're seeing and get a greater understanding of the process and getting SDA in.
That when I do a lot of work looking at the different statistics around, and it's glaringly obvious that there's just not that knowledge of it to have gotten the participants into the funding application process,
Yeah, and not a lot of support coordinators looked into it because the product just didn't exist. Now that it's coming, there's more knowledge, but you've got, SDA Services, for example, is, I think, paving the way for approvals. Wonderful organisations, and they're prepared to train and support other support coordinators to understand this space. They've always done that, and they're certainly leading the way in supporting participants either getting approval or challenging the approval that they've got at this stage.
Brilliant, fabulous. Okay, David, talk about some current projects that you've got going.
Yeah, we're very excited, in particular, about New South Wales, our expansion into New South Wales. We're working with some wonderful builders and developers that have got some really good knowledge. And as I said, we spend time taking them to the process, and they're very capable. In Tamworth, for example, is coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. And then we've got about four or five other sites in Tamworth and Armidale, Inverell, Moree, and as I said, that Northern Tablelands, Northern New South Wales, Mid-North Coast area. I'm also excited about providing support for participants in Northern Territory. We've started a development in Alice Springs. It started construction already, and at the moment we're out there supporting support coordinators, doing staff training, and helping families and advocacy groups understand SDA. I've been out there a few times. We work with some wonderful developers, and we're working with some organisations, one in particular, it's a national organisation around the territory. And we've also got a few builds in Darwin and looking at sites in Katherine and Tennant Creek as well. And as I said, that the Alice Springs development has started construction. The location's fantastic, and looking forward to showing the world what ADAPT can do in the territory.
That is amazing. I don't think there's much else going on in the territory, so this must be you're one of the very few.
Yeah, we like to think we're paving the way, and we've been very supported by some investors that actually live out there, which is good, and so they know the community and are respected in the community. And we've also, in establishing that relationship, we've also established some other relationships with community groups. And as I said, we spend time doing training sessions and running seminars and just telling people the advantages of SDA.
Let's move back into Queensland where we are. Obviously, we know that there are regional areas like Toowoomba and Townsville that we've been pretty active building there for the last year or two now. You've got other areas like Rockhampton, I believe.
Yep. We've got a Rocky project. We've got a collaboration agreement with Lieben Homes. They're a wonderful organisation that have quite a fair few sites throughout Queensland to start with, and they're putting some projects together. We've got an open day with them on the 9th of December in Rockhampton, and again we take the opportunity to run some sessions with support coordinators, with families, and anyone that's interested in SDA. We've also working closely with Queensland Health and some organisations up there to support participants moving out of hospitals and aged care facilities into some of our developments.
Got a ballpark figure of the number of dwelling places that you've sort of got under development at the moment?
No, we've got different phases. We've got some active projects. We've got projects that are under construction. We've also got projects that are still in the design stage, but they're engaged to us. Our next growth area, Cairns, for example, we've got some great sites in Cairns. We've had a site in Cairns for the last 4 years, and we've had a relationship with Queensland Health supporting participants moving out of forensic and secure mental health units, and I had information this morning that one site in particular in Cairns has just been approved, it's in council and we're just waiting for the final approval to come. And again, it's a wonderful site for robust, which we know that there is high demand. But there's also going to be some other accessible villas also built in that Cairns area as well.
Brilliant. Any other regional projects that you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered it. We still value great locations in Logan, for example. There are some robust developments coming through the Logan, Ipswich, Toowoomba, and also Caboolture as well. We know that there are plenty of builds in Caboolture. However, there's not a lot of villa developments or small apartment complexes, and so we've got a few sites in Caboolture that are in great locations, and it's really a built type, as I said, small villa developments or small apartment complexes that are a bit rare, and we're being able to work with developers, investors, creating some different product in those areas that maybe we're seeing some other houses come through.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's been so much in the HPS house building been going on there, but robust villas, definitely.
With some of our villa developments, Debbie, we've got if we've got a six-pack of villas, for example, in a great location, we hope to cater for improved livability, fully accessible and high physical support. And if we're very fortunate and the location's right, it's plausible that we could get one or two robust villas in there as well if the location's right. But certainly being able to support the other design categories like improved livability and fully accessible are important for us. They're very important.
For sure. Should we change subjects now and talk about the SDA pricing review?
Yep. Very, very excited about that. As I said, over the last 2 years, COVID has caused some significant delays in builds. Materials, land prices, we've seen it not just in Queensland, we've seen it right across Australia, and we're excited that we're at the end of a 5-year review cycle, and we're going to be heavily involved with that pricing review. We've already been invited onto that team or to various teams to be able to provide some data, information. It's valuable information that we see from investors, developers, but we also see it from participants, support organisations and advocacy groups, and we'll continue to work with those guys, and hopefully we can get that message across that SDA is important. However, it needs to be commercial as well, and hence why the whole system was set up this way.
Absolutely, and it's the only way it's going to work. If it works properly and everyone is commercially making it. Otherwise, there's no point.
No, absolutely. As I said, it's important that we support participants, but the way that it works is that we've got lots of developers and investors, and they need to be confident about the process. They need to be confident that NDIS is going to be around for a long time, which of course it is. And having that confidence, we'll start to see great locations. We'll start to see a bit more flexibility in the market, and we'll start to see a bit more confidence as well.
Which is what's needed, because the prices at the moment are not catering to that move into areas where the need really is.
It's absolutely, especially when we're talking about really good locations, Brisbane South, Brisbane North. I think there's going to be a bit of work done in the future for location factors as well. And there seems to be some significant discussions around how the location factors were originally set up and how the location factors could, affect the pricing and payment schedule for, 23 and beyond.
We're hearing rumours of a pretty significant increase to the SDA returns?
Yeah, there will
What are
be.
your thoughts?
Yeah, there will be. I believe there is going to be some significant increases, but again, I think it will be focused around location factors as well. It's a bit hard because, as I said, the review sort of takes place between November, December, and then they start to gather a bit more information after that. So it's still early days. It's a bit hard to predict what they're going to do. We've always thought from the beginning they're always going to be some sort of review and changes in SDA, but this. The fact that it's sort of really concrete, I think it's important that, as I said, we just understand how they're going to do it. And SDA providers who are on the ground, who know what they're doing, are going to be providing a lot of information to support that development.
Brilliant. So what time frame are we looking at for the review?
Yeah, most of the information that we'll provide is November, December, January, and then, as I said, we're expecting a first release, and I'm only guessing on these times, at probably April, May, and likely to be incorporated probably June, July next year.
So the inflation annual release will come out in March, so we reflected probably April, May. What do you think about
Probably June, July next year.
So the inflation annual release will come out in March, so we reflected probably April, May. What you're talking about, David, is July. Early July is the price review announcement. So we'll see two figures coming out in the next 6-7 months. I think we'll see a 7-8% inflation figure, the CPI. That's the indication so far with all the media, all the economists there, coming out about March, because we saw 7% for December here, November, December right now. With the global recession, global inflation, that's going to affect the Australian inflation there. So we'll see what happens there in April. And then the 5-year review will come in July. So they're the two figures that we're watching out for, which will affect the SDA income for our investors, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, the magic date we talk about, I've heard rumours also that they're are going to be addressing Appendix G as well, which is a very complex formula for supporting participants to live by themselves and with family members. There's going to be a bit more clarification around that as well.
Oh, that will be wonderful.
Absolutely. It's definitely needed. And as I said, we get a lot of inquiries of participants who have family members that are just trying to get a bit of clarity. And I believe that NDIS are addressing that, which is great, which is fantastic.
Dave, can I ask you a silly question in my mind? But years ago, it was supposed to be 10 billion a year, then it became 20 billion a year 2 years ago, and now it's become 38 billion a year this year. And last week, the government came up with a report saying it's worst case scenario by 2032, 115 billion per year as a worst case, but realistically 95 billion. The government keeps talking about reining in the costs, it's overspending, it's going out of control, blah, blah, blah. We hear it all the time, every day. But it's going up all the time. So at what point is it realistically supposed to be at a realistic number? How are they going to rein it in if they're already assuming 1 million participants by 2032 and 100 billion a year? When's it going to stop this number?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much focused on SDA, and we know what the vision of SDA, and I think the SDA budget per annum is 700 million, and I think the last report that I saw, they're up to about 292 million of that 700 million. So that's very much, when I look at numbers and I'm talking to investor developers, they're the numbers that I refer to. Because of our structure and our collaboration with support providers who do need to develop a roster of care, they're feeding us information back to say that it's really difficult to come up with a roster of care, with SIL and ILO and other means of funding care provision, I don't know what sort of figures that they come up with. We understand the process. We know how it works. But there has to be some significant changes come through for support providers to be able to come up with a roster of care in a way that supports participants in all different configurations, whether it be small apartment complexes or villa developments or a 3-bedroom house or a duplex. I think they have to identify some issues based around the configuration and how they look at SDA and SIL or SDA and care provision. It's probably going to be costing more money, but it's really important that we make sure that we cater for participants' needs and participants are not neglected in any way.
I've got another question regarding numbers of SDA participants. The NDIS has from the beginning said that we're looking at around 6% who are likely to qualify for SDA. Do you see that as remaining, or do you think that is going to be revised down maybe? Because if we're looking at 1 million participants, that's I think that makes it about 60,000.
Well, I want to answer that question. I've got to answer the question. In Queensland, it seems to be the 3% mark in Queensland. That's the stats.
Current levels.
In Melbourne, you see 7, 8s, 6, 7s and 8s in certain regions. So it's all about location factor, location areas, regions. So the numbers will change everywhere. So the government's forecast is really a 6% average forecast in the whole scheme. It will fluctuate in every region. So, we stick with 6% for now. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. If it's 1 million forecast in 11 years from now, then we'll be looking at 60,000 under the SDA scheme. Yes. Yeah.
What I find difficult in this space at the moment, and I saw a report that was given to me in October 22, so it's only last month, is one of the key figures that came up is that I think the NDIS said that they are supporting over 19,000 participants with SDA in their package.
Yes.
And so that sort of figure, you look at that, and as I said, the scheme was set up to cater for 6% of the population. 460,000 people are on the NDIS in Australia, 6%, so it works out to be about 28,000 people. I do remember seeing a report in 2017 to say that it's not likely to be 28, it's more like 60,000. However, it's still unknown, and as I said, I use that information sometimes. Because what we are seeing is participants who are living with elderly mums and dads, and I don't think that was factored in. ASD, I don't think was factored in as well. However, when we look at that 19,000 participants who were supported by SDA, it's true. However, some participants were grandfathered across, some participants are in legacy stock, some participants who are SDA approved have new build approval as well. And we're starting to see, which is exciting, people who are in older, 1960s and 70s, starting to see new builds come through, and they're taking the opportunity to apply for new build SDA to get a forever home, and so it's just trying to determine the numbers between existing build pricing, legacy stock, and new build pricing is pretty difficult to be able to do. It's a tough one.
I think we'll definitely see more of a hybrid dwellings come out in the next 10, 15 years, because half of the 555,000 in the NDS right now are children under 18, right? Yeah. So they're still young. So as they grow up and get older, those parents are going to have their generational wealth, their wealth of the family of properties and assets, right? Which they don't want to put their kids into a share home, group home. Mm. They'll do their own design, family homes designed properly for their adult child, which is disabled in a certain way. Yep. So you'll see more of a hybrid design in the future, I think, in the next 10 years coming out, as parents see all their children come out as adults, as disabled adults too, by the way. So that factor is also an issue to consider the next 10 years. Yeah.
Children's services is certainly big, and we do work with some organisations and looking at transitioning guys from high schools into SDA, but also you've got child services and supporting those participants. You're right, going through the SDA process and being able to, when they turn 18, being able to have some future homes to go into, that can again support their, whether it's behaviour, whether it's medical, whether it's physical needs.
Great. Okay then, David. I think that covers everything I want to discuss today. Have you got any other thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, I'm just excited. As I said, we're starting to see some traction post COVID and some builds going ahead. A lot had stalled, and as I said, we're taking the opportunity to working with those investors and developers again. Some have re-engaged with us after 18 months to 2 years in the quiet.
Yep.
And it's, as I said, generally for us, it's about location and supporting them through the process. But as I said, I can't reiterate more how important flexibility is, whether it be supporting participants flexibly with their funding or participants with IL and fully accessible, in whether it be using a high physical support place to be able to support those. So flexibility is important in our space.
So my final words for everyone listening is, the last 3 years we've seen 2,500 new build dwellings for SDA finished, completed. We have another 2,500 in construction pipeline right now. So 12 months from now we'll probably see 5,000 in total. That 5,000 number is still short of the 25,000 needed.
Way short.
Yeah, we're still short. Yeah. So there's a lot to go in terms of all the stakeholders collaborating together to work together as investors, financiers, funders, providers, builders, and developers to work together to deliver the common goal of more dwellings across Australia. Because it's nice, but it's not enough. And we're coming out of COVID, and also we're going into global recession and global inflation, which is also going to have a big impact upon people's criteria to get into SDA, be it a fund manager or an investor. So just keep an open mind, and we work towards the common goal here, everyone.
And I like the fact that NDI's Property Australia understand the importance of location, understand the importance of configuration, understand the importance of different build types. I think it's important as well, and hence why we like working closely with you guys. We
one thing I've noticed in Western Australia, the West Coast, is they don't really understand because they're so new to it. It's all new to them.
It's one of the last states.
Yeah, so I really saw the lack of experience and understanding of SDA over there because they haven't built enough. That's the truth. You only learn from doing. So they kept on saying to us that they need more experienced presenters and education from the East Coast who have so much experience with construction development to bring that knowledge over to the West Coast. So we're doing our best to fly over to Western Australia a lot these days, and also Tasmania next week as well.
In Western Australia, like most states, some large regional towns with high population, lots of amenities, lots of great transport as well. So they're going to be the key factors in supporting participants moving into forever homes.
Yep. Great.
Okay, I think that wraps up today's episode.
Thank you, David.
So, thank you, David.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.